Welcome back. This is Dawn Velanoff with DMV Consulting and Networking. I would like to welcome our two guests today. We have Councilman Benson, District 3 of the City of Detroit. Thank you, Councilman. Dawn. We also have Sonya Grant, CEO of Cobb Works out of Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you, Sonya.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so this is a great dialogue that I would like to have. This is week 2 of our conversation on what's happening in as we stated last week, what's happening globally, but nationally and locally to us and in America here with COVID and with health equity, race relations, and just so many different things. And some choose to look at it as an opportunity to move forward and some don't. So I've asked these two if they could come and join because they're experts in the field of what they do. So I just want to do a couple bios real quick because I think it's important for our listeners to know who our experts are. So we've got Sonya Grant is the president and CEO of WorkSource Cobb, Cobb County's workforce development agency, which provides access to a system of employment and education services for residents and employers in the state of Georgia. Sonya graduated from the University of Michigan, Dearborn, where she received a BA in communications with a minor in political science. She launched her career with a Master of Social Work from Wayne State in Detroit, Michigan. It was there where she honored her nonprofit, public health, and workforce development skills as a community and economic development executive director, a senior project manager for the University of Michigan School of Public Health, and as a chief operating officer for Michigan's third largest workforce development agency. Where she currently is at WorkSource Cobb in Marietta, Georgia, Sonya is serving a population of over 760,000 with an industry sector career pathways initiatives, including education and employment placement. So thank you and welcome, Sonya.
Thank you.
We also, as we said earlier, we have Councilman Benson. Scott Benson is Detroit City Councilman who represents Detroit's 3rd District. Councilman Benson is an urban planner by training with a long background in real estate and community development in southeastern Michigan. Scott has 18 years of experience in commercial real estate, municipal planning, and the community economic development industries. Mr. Benson's most recent experience prior to being elected to Detroit City Council is with Midtown Detroit, Inc., where he managed small business development in Detroit's Midtown areas by providing technical assistance, financial packaging, marketing support, business plan development, and facade grants. Scott was responsible for over $300 million in development, the creation of over 300 direct jobs, and 200,000 square feet of commercial and residential space on Detroit's east side. Scott has spent his time in the nonprofit, military, public, and private sectors, managing and facilitating small, large international projects. He's a graduate of Wayne State University, Hampton University, the National Defense University, and the U.S. Coast Guard's Officer Candidate School. He holds a certificate of professional development and finance from Warren School of Business, Warren Executive Academy scholar, and is a Harvard Kennedy School of Government Fellow in the Senior Executive and State and Local Government Program. And both of our so thank you, Councilman. Both of our experts here both serve on multiple boards, committees, and both of you have a wealth of knowledge and bring expertise to the cities in which you work, but to the cities in which you live. So with that, I'm going to really just open it up for a dialogue for all of us to have. I had asked both of you to come on to talk about the effects of pre-COVID, COVID, and kind of where we are today, this post-COVID, not post-COVID, and really how it's affected you and your areas of your workforce, in your communities, and health equity and moving it forward. And lastly, really wanting to know what is a call to action that our listeners can do. Awesome. So yeah, so thanks. So Sonya, with regard to if you can set up a picture for our listeners about Georgia and the county that you serve and
Sure.
Almost 1 million people. If you could set up some of those demographics for us.
Yeah, sure. We are located in, I serve Cobb County, which has services about 760,000 people. We're right outside of Atlanta. We have approximately 7 different cities that we provide resources and services for. And those services include workforce development activities such as employment and training, as well as servicing employers. So our job primarily is to focus on employers and ensure that we understand what employers' needs are so that we can provide training, meaning that funding for training ideally, for individuals who are seeking employment or who might be underemployed, and ensure that those individuals are getting opportunities that are not only obtaining opportunities, but also able to sustain opportunities, which is the most critical part of that. Again, we service over 760,000 individuals in Cobb. That's our county, Cobb County. Approximately 16% of them are Spanish speaking. And prior to COVID, I would like to think that things were going fairly well. We were able to really focus on career pathways for individuals. Our economy was really just getting back up to speed. So we were starting to see the effects of all the policies and investments that had been put in place during the economic downturn of 2007 and 2009. So we're starting to get the residual effects of that and really be able to hone and focus our efforts on improving individuals' plight in life, basically. One of the things that I was primarily focused on was really creating career pathways for individuals and moving those individuals into economic self-sufficiency and upward mobility. And unemployment was low. And then hit COVID, and here we are today.
Yeah, no, thank you. Councilman, can you give us a little bit of your District 3 and the demographics of the district and your constituents that you serve?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you, Don. Number one, thank you for this invitation to participate today. So the Northeast side of Detroit, District 3, we are surrounded by Macomb County, by Oakland County, and we are at the far east side of Wayne County. I represent approximately 100,000 Detroiters in the northeast side of Detroit. We are one of the largest districts geographically and about in the middle when it comes to population. Our income, we are predominantly a low-income community, but a very proud community as well. We have, I like to say that we are the foundation of the industrial footprint and tax base for the city of Detroit. We have the most industrial property and tax base within the city of Detroit. We also have a number of high schools. We have a number of recreation centers, and we have a great infrastructure and portfolio of small bedroom communities throughout the city. We don't have the sexiest neighborhoods, but we have a number of very stable neighborhoods and a very proud constituency. And so one of my priorities being a city councilman for Detroit are jobs, and more jobs. Have to make sure my residents are able to work and provide for their families. And that's been one of the biggest challenges we've had in the city of Detroit historically. And so when you come to my district, you're going to see cranes, you're going to see new economic development engines, new roads going in. And that's a direct result of advocacy and a constituency and a population that is hungry and ready to work. And so I'm very proud to be here. It's always an honor and a privilege to serve the residents of Detroit. And Don, just happy to be here working with you today.
Good. Well, thank you. Look at that.
Although we do have a smaller population of individuals that are low income and low educated, and we ideally, let me back up a little bit. We're known to have a large population of individuals with higher incomes. However, there is a smaller population of individuals with low incomes and moderate sized incomes as well. We primarily are a white community. We have approximately 49% African Americans or Blacks in our community, with approximately 16% of. Should I go on about the population? Our demographics are considered high upper income, but we're considered a part of the Metro Atlanta area. So individuals that come into our community come from all over. We're about 25 minutes outside of Atlanta.
Okay, so you can get individuals from other counties?
Absolutely. We're right around the corner from Atlanta. I partner very closely with the 5 workforce boards. That includes Fulton County, which is Atlanta, by the way, ARC, which consists of about 7 counties, DeKalb County, which is a part of the Atlanta area as well, and Cobb. And again, we all work together to develop collective impact strategies to focus on the issues that our communities face and try to braid our resources together to ensure that our communities are served properly.
Right. No, that's good to know because I didn't realize that's how it operated. Is it operate different or are the concepts the same as they were when you were working in the space here?
Absolutely. We're one of 19 workforce agencies in the state of Georgia. And this is a national effort in the sense that we're all funded through WIOA. This is WIOA funding. And when I was in Michigan, I worked for one of the third largest workforce development agencies in the state. And again, it was WIOA funded, formula funded by the state, whereas you guys have approximately 16 workforce agencies in your state, all focused on strategies to improve the economic health of the state of Michigan, and we're here to improve the state of the economic health of Georgia. So again, this is throughout the entire nation that these workforce agencies exist to focus on upward mobility and economic self-sufficiencies for those communities and really begin to get our economies back on track.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's nice. So what does how has your plan and your strategic plan moving forward, how has it had to change since COVID?
Yeah, that's really a great question as well. COVID, I'll be honest with you, Dawn, COVID has put a strain on all of us. We're all in desperate need in this nation of some transformational leadership. We recognize the inequities that existed prior to COVID, but COVID has really raised to the highest levels the serious inequities in our country. Specifically for us as a workforce agency, we were accustomed to having customers come into our store, into our service centers, receive services, and address issues in person if we needed to. But now we're at the mercy of COVID and having to practice social distancing and ensure that we're focused on the health of our communities and our customers. So now we had to immediately pivot and develop a virtual service delivery model. And that in and of itself created, just raised to the highest levels the inequities as it relates to the digital divide. So customers, I think, for all of us, we recognize that the digital divide existed, but it's just been exacerbated by this particular issue, this pandemic. Our customers, everyone doesn't have access to broadband. Everyone doesn't have access to computers. Believe it or not, according to a Pew Research study in 2019, 26% of adults utilize their smartphones as their primary device for utilizing access to broadband. They didn't have access at home. So you can you imagine trying to fill out a job application at home?
No.
Trying to look for jobs on your phone or complete information on your phone. I think many of us take those things for granted. And so COVID has really just raised this issue to the highest level, and us having to determine how we're going to increase access to services, no matter where an individual falls on the technology scale. So, you might have, all the access you need if you have more resources, but when you're working with limited resources, you have zero to no access. So how do we address those issues for our customers to ensure that we can help those individuals obtain the jobs that they need and the skills and the education that they need? Here in Cobb as well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say Cobb, but here in the state of Georgia, so our schools are having to pivot as well, just like I'm sure in Michigan, to figure out how do you service those families and those students that are in need of education and training and those and books and all those things when they don't have the right resources in terms of accessing that information virtually. It has really
that's a really valid point. And I'm also wondering too, with that, Sonya, I would like to know are you seeing, I would like to know how your job market is there, number one, because if they're supposed to be looking for jobs and applying for jobs and then they don't have access, but then there are no jobs. So I would like, how does that work? And then the other piece I'm wondering is, have you seen an uptick with mental health? Right. So those individuals that, aren't even able to get out to find a job. And then if you have seen an uptick in correlation between that, are all of you then starting to collaborate with mental health providers to see how you can bridge the two together?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. COVID has really impinged upon every aspect of people's lives, both socioeconomically, physically, mentally, and has prevented individuals from moving forward and just trying to effectively problem solve, if you know what I mean. I think that here in Georgia, we've noticed a number of things happening. Although many of the companies have closed, our companies filed what they call WARN notices. And a WARN notice is a worker adjustment and re-engagement notification by the state. Whereas an employer with over 100 employees has to file a WARN notice to say that, hey, I'm closing, or I'm closing temporarily, or I'm shutting down permanently. And those are companies that are large, that have over 100 employees. The small businesses don't have to do that. And here in Georgia, over 850 companies have closed. And you can imagine, what is closed across the state, across the country. But over here in Georgia, over 800 companies have closed. We have huge unemployment numbers. And while some organizations and companies are suffering, other employers are thriving. So there are some industries, I'll be honest with you, that are thriving and doing fairly well and hiring. But do the workforce have the skills that those employers need for those individuals to be able to obtain employment? And that's what the question is.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, is how then, with those opportunities and where it's thriving, then how do you turn that into something that everyone can benefit from?
Absolutely. And, while, I don't work in the mental health arena per se, I can tell you that depression is going to play a huge role in individuals being able to get back to where they are. Our economy is going to come back at some point, but it's going to be a very, very slow recovery for our economy. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. So people that are thinking that, folks are going to get back to work and, and things will be okay in the next 5 or 6 months, we'll be in this space that we are today for the next 2 years at least. I'm sure the council has something to say about that as well. He probably sees the same thing in Detroit.
Yeah. So welcome back, Councilman. We were just discussing how COVID has really impacted her clients and their abilities to really jump on the market and really be able to apply for positions. And then obviously with the digital divide, she's got that gap of individuals that just don't have the access to be able to do so. And how do you really maneuver through that and what they were doing? So with you, Councilman, are you seeing the same type of trend in Detroit, primarily in your district, or no, because it was more industrial?
So the challenges, we do have a heavy industrial base, and our employers are seeing challenges, but most importantly, the residents as well. So loss of jobs. Although I must say the $600 per week unemployment insurance federal bump is helping to stave off the torrent of misery that comes from lack of financial resources. And so we're just looking to see what happens after the 25th of July when those checks shut down. But the loss of jobs, the lack of jobs, the level of those who are taking advantage of unemployment, number one, is concerning if you haven't seen the full impacts. But also on the job market, we're seeing a number of employers who can't find people right now. So there are up and downs. There are businesses that have gone out of business, but there are also businesses that can't find people just because of that unemployment insurance right now. And now I'm not going to say anything about anybody who's taking advantage of the resources that are made available to them. But I'm really interested to see what the job market looks like when people lose that $600 per week. And right now in the city of Detroit, we have FCA, soon to be renamed. We've got to fill 5,000 jobs there. We have a number of other plants that are going on and opening up in the city of Detroit. We have to fill those positions, and we're looking for people. So we are open for business. But the other challenge is, and this is, as Ms. Grant said earlier, the skill sets also have to match. That's often the challenge for us. But right now, COVID is wreaking havoc on the city of Detroit health-wise, as well as economically. And we still haven't seen the full impact just based on the safety net that's been rolled out by the federal government. But they're going to take that away soon. So we're really going to see how the fiscal reality of our residents is once that safety net is recalled.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me commenting on that, it's interesting because I agree with the councilman there. People are receiving that additional financial resource through the CARES Act, and that's additional $600 per week. And disproportionately, I think everyone knows that this pandemic has disproportionately affected minorities as well as low-income people. And you can't really blame those individuals for wanting to take advantage of those additional dollars, because they're making far more money on unemployment than they were in the workforce. Many of these individuals were making $10 or $11 an hour, and those individuals, now are getting, $600 a week. That was far more than what they were bringing home, their take-home pay. And, while it's a good thing, and I'm not discouraging individuals from taking advantage of unemployment, but what we often tell people is that this is an opportunity. We see this as an opportunity for you to upskill yourself now. Now's the time to take advantage of that, utilize your unemployment, come to us for services, upskill yourself so that we can help you hit the ground running when it's time to obtain that new opportunity to have the skills that those employers are looking for. And we've consistently been sending that message and framing that message to encourage people to enroll in our programs. And that's something that we've been doing, not just in my local area, but again, remember I talked about my partnership with other workforce boards, but throughout our region. This is a regional effort to get individuals to enroll today, while you're able to take advantage of that. And to be honest with you, Councilman Benson, I'd like to see those dollars continue for a little while longer, because oftentimes individual has to be able to have to choose between going to school and working. And you can't give up that job to upskill yourself. Economic mobility opportunity is not there for you, because you got to choose between feeding your family every day and going to school to upskill yourself to improve your economic lot. So it's a tough situation and a very slippery slope. But I truly am hoping that the government sees fit to expand that for a little while longer, so we can continue to educate individuals on how to utilize that to their advantage and upskilling themselves, and begin to build that talent pipeline for our employers.
Well,
that's a good point.
Ms. Viloff, and I agree with you, Sonya. So we're advocating to our U.S. senators and our U.S. congresspersons to continue on with that. And so we're hoping that there's a decision made very soon by the federal government when it comes to extending that. If not, then maybe not cutting it off so immediately, stepping it down. Then maybe there are ways to ensure that money continues if you're doing something like training, or you're going back to work, and just to ensure they supplement those opportunities.
Yeah. So Sonya and Councilman, one of the other things, because I agree 100%, I think that's a really valid point, is the education that is being provided the normal education that has always been provided in training, or is it now you are providing, we got a cute little baby guest. Or is the education...
Challenge of parenting during COVID.
I know, exactly. Or is the training and the upskilling and things of that nature, are all of those classes based on the new employment opportunities? Has that part of it been switched over yet? Like how we had spoken earlier, there's all these jobs, but they may not have the skill for those jobs.
Yeah, I'll speak to that for a moment. I think that the schools and training institutions are having to pivot as well, and determine how they can provide those same trainings virtually, because we're now in a space where we have to consistently practice social distancing, whereas previously you could have 25, 30 people in a classroom. Now that you're no longer able to do that, how do you provide those same kinds of trainings for those high demand career industries in a different way? And they're struggling because some of these things can't be provided in a different way. As I said earlier, I do believe that our economy is going to come back. It's going to be a very, very slow economic recovery. And those high demand industries will continue to be, I know for us here in Georgia, we focus on transportation and logistics, advanced manufacturing, IT, healthcare, as well as I may have missed something else, but those are some of our high demand industries that we focus on. Okay. And some of the things can't always be provided virtually. So the training schools are having to pivot, and we're still consistently trying to find training opportunities to get those individuals into virtual trainings. But remember, I talked about the digital divide. So how do you provide training virtually for a customer base that doesn't have access to broadband, or don't have computers, or how do we do that in an effective way? There clearly needs to be an answer. I hate to say on a government level, but there needs to be funding provided to those larger companies, so then they can produce
that digital divide as. I mean, they can provide that.
Yeah. This is going to be an ongoing issue. I mean, over our lifetime, if we don't address this, because as we move forward, many of our, oftentimes people say, oh, those people took our jobs. No, technology took your job for the most part. Technology is going to progress and people are going to need access in order to obtain those opportunities.
To me, is add, and unfortunately, you're absolutely right. Technology took your job, but it's up to our workforce to prepare themselves to get there and catch up. And so in Detroit, we engaged the philanthropic as well as corporate community to come in and ensure all of our students have a laptop and or a tablet. Also working with companies like Comcast to provide low cost or even free broadband Wi-Fi for our families as well. And that goes for working adults also. We're also looking for those types of support opportunities to make sure that those don't have access to a laptop or computer, get that either at a hub or at home somewhere.
Yeah, I think that we have to begin to involve corporations in this as well, because there has to be a response to this particular issue, because as a workforce agency, we can't always, let me just look at it from this perspective also, that last year during this time, the economy was fairly good. Unemployment was fairly low. And individuals, while many of them were making low wages, we were able to focus on career pathways. But now the unemployment rate is extremely high. So with that being said, our formula funding that we receive annually is based on the previous year's unemployment. So with that being said, what happens is when our unemployment rate is low, your funding gets cut. So we get less money. But now we're getting less money during a time when we need far more resources to address the issue. So that means that we're having to go out there and not that partnership is a bad thing, because I'm a firm believer in partnership, and I believe that partnership is at the heart of the work that we do. But we're having to really go out there and beat the streets and shake the streets to find resources to address this issue very, very quickly, because we have to get people back in their jobs to get our economy back sooner rather than later. Otherwise, people are going to suffer. As Councilman Benson said a moment ago, if this this CARES Act funding ends in July, we're going to see some people in some desperate needs. There'll be some.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. So what I hear both of you saying is not only personal accountability, but governmental accountability. But really, then again, the industry, they need to have some accountability as well.
Absolutely. You know what? I often have discussions with employers, because I work very closely with our local chambers as well as other employer organizations, and have true discussions about the wages that they're paying. You can't, and to live in Cobb County, an individual needs to make $19 an hour to afford a one-bedroom apartment. Many of these employers are paying $12, $10, $11. Where are you expecting to get your workforce from? And then there's no public transportation on top of that. So you expect your employees to come from across town to make $10 per hour and work in a county that they can't even afford to live in. It's not reasonable. So employers need to step up to the plate, pay reasonable wages to help individuals begin to reduce their dependence on entitlement programs. Because if I'm only making $11 an hour, guess what? I'm still eligible for entitlement programs. I can still receive food stamps, or I can still receive Medicaid or Medicare. Those things are still available to me because I'm underemployed. I'm the working poor.
Yeah.
No, and Ms. Grant, we have the same issue right here in Detroit. And so what we are seeing, though, and this is the upside to having good partnerships with your corporations, is that we've seen a number, as more companies come in the manufacturing space in Detroit, we're seeing wages increase because people are having to compete now with those who are willing to come in and work in the manufacturing space. And manufacturing and factory work is not for everybody. It has a very high turnover rate. This is a very demanding profession. And so we're seeing, when we started, and for me in 2015, we saw the first doors open during my tenure. We were at $12 an hour benefits. Now we're seeing companies offering $15 an hour with benefits. And so that's a $3 per hour increase over $12 an hour, which is about a 20% increase in wages over a 4-year period. I mean, so that's good. That's very, very good. when it comes to making sure, but it also means that people have to be willing to come to work and have to be willing to get the skill sets that those companies need. And that's just basic understanding, ability to do some basic math, reading, and the willingness to come to work every day and every day on time. And so when we talk about accountability, there is a level of self-accountability. There's a level of support from the government. And so we help these companies by providing training, low-cost training. Also, there's a corporate responsibility as well. You have to provide decent wages, which may mean that you're not going to get the same profit margin, but you're not going to go hungry either. We all need to see that we are in this boat together, and the rising boat, a rising tide lifts all boats if we're all working together and everybody's in the boat.
Absolutely. You know, I frequently talk about there's no value to our country in having large populations of poor people. There's far more value in having people that work every day, that are able to buy more goods and services and are able to invest in the economy. And, you know, it's not really a debate, but I often question, why does our country consistently invest in having so many people that are unemployed and poor? I haven't figured that out yet. And I guess once I do, I'll have the answer to the $1 million question. I'll be a billionaire. But there's just no value to our economy. Any economist will tell you that it's far more valuable to have more working people buying goods and services than there is having a lot of poor people on entitlement programs. So there's clearly a more systemic and a deep-rooted issue at hand here.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Which brings me to my next question is, are you seeing pockets, and then let me back up real quick, excuse me. Scott, this is really going to drill down to your district opposed to the full city. And then Sonya, this is going to ask you to take a look at the neighborhoods within your counties that, you know, you partner with. Are you seeing the small businesses? So, you know, we talked, 100 employees or more. Are you seeing any models that are working, that are really helping and working for the community and sustaining a job and staying open and being able to train and something that's different than corporate, something that's different than what we hear on TV or what we've been talking about? Like, have you seen any of these kind of models throughout your neighborhood, Scott, or Sonya, within your county?
So, Don, when you talk about models, you mean like smaller businesses working?
Yeah, like a smaller business model. I mean, obviously, we all have seen small businesses have gone under and have had to close their doors. But you always will see, like, there is just one small business that just is innovative, or they have some kind of model and it's sustaining. And
so we do. I've seen a number of our restaurants who were hardest hit and early on. I see a number of them been able to weather the storm, at least in this first wave of COVID. And now we're going back to a series of closings. I'm hoping they can weather the second wave. But a good example is in Detroit, Sister Pie. They turned themselves into a grocery store. And so instead of just using the ingredients that they buy to make the pies and their baked goods, they started selling them. And so our family, we support them by going and online. They do it online. They have the list of groceries that they have that week. And we buy produce. We bought baked goods. We bought spices from them. And so they've taken, instead of being just a restaurant that receives the commodity, they now buy the commodities and resell them instead of producing them as a pie or another baked good. So that's one way.
That's really smart.
And they are, as per their social media, they're doing pretty good as well by doing that. And so we've seen a number of other restaurants and small business owners do something like that. They've done the pivot, and they were fast enough and they understood how to do it, and their staffs were willing to work with them, and they've been able to survive, at least weather the storm the first time. And so I have seen a couple of businesses that have been able to do that.
Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, thank you. I know the Peacock Room I saw only because of our governor here in Michigan had the Peacock Room on. And I thought that was actually a really good, that was one of the first times I had seen true innovative ideas, because she did online drive-through pickup sales. And so, yeah, no, but thanks for sharing that. Sonya, how about in your demographic area? Have you seen anything?
I'm going to come to this from a different perspective. While I haven't seen any businesses per se develop any innovative strategies, I do recognize that the service industry has been hit the hardest, and that's where most of our low-income workers, that many of our low-income workers work. For us, as a workforce agency, it's been incumbent upon us to be able to develop innovative approaches to addressing these particular issues, specifically as it relates to businesses as well. We have to create access to resources for our small businesses as well as our large employers. And we've been partnering and working with our county as well as working with the chambers to create expanded access to this full workforce ecosystem. One of the things that we've done at our level, on my local level, is I've identified some additional funding. I've been able to secure some additional funding to support employers and pay individuals wages for between 50 and 75% of wages for individuals as employers begin to make new hires. Because what I'm thinking is, I'm always thinking about, as employers begin to ease back into this economy and begin to slowly generate revenue, because people aren't coming out like they used to, even though you may have had to pivot, and develop a new innovative strategy, you're still not getting the revenue that you once were. So we want to be able to support employers and help them to be sustainable. So one of the things that we're able to do is pay wages, 50 to 75% of wages for individuals over a course of about 6 months to employers, to help those employers ease back into the economy, be able to generate more revenue and support those employers. So we've been able to obtain about $2.4 million for my organization to support employers.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome, because you're that macro level, which then allows the community business from that meso level to then be the innovator and to think of how can I innovatively do some stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a really valid point.
Well, I also want to bring up the fact that not only are we supporting the businesses in that way, but as individuals ease back into work as well, one of the huge issues is childcare. So we're able to support those individuals that are getting back.
I know.
And that must have struck a nerve with both you and Scott.
I know, we both go.
Right. But as you know, I'm a mom, but I'm a mom with a child that's far older than yours. But I understand, being a mom, that, if you want to get back to work, parents have to get back to work at some point, right? So how do you obtain affordable childcare? So we're able to pay for childcare for those individuals that are getting back to work or going back to school to upskill themselves. We're paying for childcare. We're also paying for transportation for people, and we're going to help you pay for school. So again, I'm thinking about this full wraparound component and these holistic kind of services, move these individuals from, I don't want to say poverty, but from poverty to economic self-sufficiency.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. That's a valid point. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, thank you. What about, I don't know your demographics fully, Sonya, but I would like to touch on minority-owned businesses, primarily just because Scott's district and where he's at. And I worked in Scott's district. I know you worked over it. I mean, we've all worked over it, in Councilman's district, and it really is a really strong, like, you feel a great connection there. How has that been hit? Have you seen small businesses that are minority owned that have been very successful, and then small businesses that are, I'll just be blunt. Is it the small businesses where they're just white and they're successful and they're getting E&O, or are you seeing a divide between that in your district and or in Detroit?
Well, let me say this. Georgia has probably some of the largest number of minority-owned businesses in the country.
Oh, really?
Yeah, believe it or not, they do. But I will also tell you this, that even in my experience in working in Michigan, what I've noticed is that few of them understand the resources and services that are available to them. So they don't have the access. And that's what it's about, having access and knowledge.
With everything, right? Access to care, healthcare, access to, yes, that is the biggest issue. Yes.
That's the key. And they don't have the access and the knowledge about the resources and services that are available to them. So therefore they suffer the most because they don't understand that those things are out there. But lucky for me, I recognize and I acknowledge that issue. So I make a very intentional and strategic effort to reach out to those companies and to those individuals to ensure that they're able to access those services.
Well, yeah, they're lucky they have you as a leader. That number one, minority, woman, smart, obviously smart, and you know the system and you know it from multi-layers. So they are really blessed that they have that, because if it's operated from a different mindset, then it doesn't work. Yeah.
You know, as I say, when you know better, you do better, right? I'm sure Scott could speak to that perspective as well in terms of minority companies and small businesses that have been hit, especially in his local area specifically.
And so you're absolutely right. So in the third district, particularly, a number of our manufacturing that are minority owned have been hit. And unfortunately, what you see from minority owned companies, they just don't have the same access to capital that majority owned businesses do. And so what we've been focused on in Detroit and working with the state and the federal government as well is trying to ensure that those companies have access to capital. So we've been very specific and prescriptive when it comes to targeting grants for our manufacturers, for our small businesses. We provide technical assistance to also ensure that they have access to the knowledge on just how to open, how to operate safely. We provided free testing to make sure that their staff are prepared to come back to work. We've helped with health and safety plans for plants. We've also helped with writing just general notices and giving public service announcements to different industries, such as the beauty industry. So cosmetologists, estheticians, barbers, making sure that they're prepared to open up and comply with the state regulations and CDC guidelines as well. So we're also helping there. And to me, the biggest help is free money. You can give us a business free money, especially when they're not receiving any revenues. That's key. And so at one time, I did the cash flow analysis on free, and it's very, very good.
Yeah. You know, have you found that, and I know you're asking the questions, Don, but I just want to ask this.
No, it's dialogue, so I appreciate it. No.
I know that when I was in Michigan and I was a chief operating officer for one of the workforce development agencies, we partner with the Michigan Minority Supplier Development Council. And we found that frequently employers don't believe that it's free. They find it to be too good to be true. And so they are somewhat reluctant to take advantage of those resources because they're a little nervous. It's like, nah, that couldn't be real. Are you finding that, Councilman Benson?
So one of the issues, not that they find it too good to be true, that they may have been burned before. And so they're reluctant to get back into the pool because when you give somebody free money, this is also government money. This is federal dollars. These are county dollars, state dollars, city dollars. You have to do some reporting and compliance behind that. So I need your tax return. I need your time cards, your audits. And so not every business is always prepared to do that. Many of our businesses who are on a shoestring are not operating in a traditional space as far as compliance with federal tax regulations. So oftentimes they just can't take it. So we've seen that as a barrier, but we also recognize it and we don't want to lose these businesses that employ people. So we're trying to make giving money as easy as possible. Yeah. But sometimes people just can't take it. It's unfortunate. But we understand those barriers, especially within our community here in the city of Detroit. And so we're working to make those barriers, eliminate as many barriers as we possibly can.
Yeah. Do you provide the training for those things that you had just mentioned, like the taxes and time cards and how to do an audit and when it's appropriate? I know like your local, like, you know, economic corporations and you know what I mean? Like I know they do, but are those partners as well that you do so they can take advantage of those dollars?
If you're referring to me, no, we do not provide those kinds of trainings for employers, but we partner with our local economic development departments, our county economic development, as well as the Small Business Association and local chambers to rely on them to provide those kinds of resources to employers. And we're always providing reverse referrals and they're referring back. So it's really a great partnership. And I value those partnerships because I don't believe that we could be the end all be all, but I think that it's important that we identify where our strengths are and begin to leverage our resources and braid those resources together so that we can create that necessary safety net for the employers as well as the individuals that live in our communities.
Yeah,
So,
and Scott, what about you in your district?
so we partner. So as a city, we provide those type of services, but on a minor level, we focus more on training the staff, but we will support our entrepreneurs and our manufacturers. And typically the state has those type of resources. They'll do trainings around taxes. They'll do trainings around leadership. They'll do trainings around recruitment and things of that nature. So we identify the sources and the resources for our small businesses, and often they don't know where to go. So we play the conduit to help match people, put them together.
Right. Okay. Well, I know it's getting close to the end. So I would like just a couple things. So if I was a community member living in either of your communities, what is something I could do to help your industries? Anything I could do as a community member that I could pass along? Is there anything you'd like to tell listeners that are listening that you could share with them as a community member?
I guess I'll go first. If you were a community member, what kind of information would I want you to share? I think for us, workforce is throughout the country is one of the country's best kept secrets. So I would encourage you to tell a friend and encourage those individuals to utilize the resources. Don't make assumptions about the services that are being provided that you may not be eligible, because to be honest with you, we service everyone. In the event that you or Councilman Benson became unemployed, you're eligible for workforce development resources, whether you're unemployed or even underemployed. And underemployed just means you're making lower wages. And think about what your next step in life is, and think about who potentially can help you. And workforce development is that space where you can utilize a number of resources. You can tap into a full ecosystem that's willing to pay for your education and training, that's willing to support you through supportive services like childcare, transportation, access to food access, as well as housing access. So we have a wealth of resources that are available. So I would encourage individuals that are in the communities to just spread the word, because again, we want our move individuals into economic self-sufficiency. This is what we're here for. This is what we want to do. And the more folks that know about it, the more people that we can help better our economy and get our country back on track.
Great. And Councilman Benson, what would be something you'd like to let your community know, and how call to action that they could do?
Number one, stand fast. Don't let the current environment get you down and overwhelm you. So right now, in the moment, this is terrible, and we're looking at heavy weather to come. But we've been through things like this before, and we've gotten through it. People aren't remembering May and April, how bad May and April were when people were scared to go outside. So we've been there. We will help you get through it. On the side of government, nonprofit, business, we understand that we have to come through this together on the other side, and we're working hard. So please just bear with us. I know people get frustrated. They've been cooped up in the house. We've got Black Lives Matter movements going on. We're going to get through this. So this time next year, hope this will all be a memory, and we can sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk about it and lament. But just bear with us, and we're working with you, and we have your best interests at heart, and we're going to get us through it. Thank you for the resources you need.
Awesome. Thank you. And one last thing before we sign out is, if anyone wants to get a hold of either of you or your offices, what is the best method that a listener, community member, someone that wants to offer support, what is the best way to do so? Ms. Grant?
Sure. You can go to our website at WorkSourceCobb.org. Or feel free, if you want to tap into any of our resources, both locally or as well as regionally, you can tap into atlworks.org as well. And again, we are here to service you and here to help you through these trying times. So please make sure that you're looking for resources and services. We're here to help.
All right. You can just reach me by calling 313 224-1198, 313-224-1198, or go to my webpage, cityofdetroit.gov/Scott Benson.
Beautiful. Well, I'd like to thank both of you, Ms. Grant, CEO of CobbWorks, and Councilman Benson, City Council for District 3 and City of Detroit, and also our special guest, Ezra. Baby Ezra, super cute.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. This was an awesome discussion, and I think a really important discussion, so I appreciate you having this.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
I concur with what Sonya said. This is fantastic, Don. I'm hoping you're going to have more conversations of this nature. People really need to hear this and understand what's going on and what resources there are, and that people are out here fighting for them to make sure they get those resources.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was very enlightening to me. I didn't even know that a lot of times people aren't even aware of the resources, and that's half of the battle right there.
Right.
And
power.
Yeah, so that's great. Any way that DMV Networking Consulting can help, get resources out, put it on our webpage. We're definitely here to continue with the partnership. So
thank you.
Thank you very much.